Hello and welcome to the Story Forge. My name's Grant Ellis, and this week we're going to be talking about hooking your players into the history of your campaign setting. We'll be discussing building player connections to characters, creatures, locations, and loot. Let's begin by introducing historical aspects of your campaign world and making them in such a way that your players are given motivation for taking action and interfacing with the world. In the first episode, we talked about the importance of conflict while world building. So let's begin by looking at tying adventurers to the source of the conflict. What is the major source of conflict in your campaign setting right now? Is an ancient evil attempting to return and enslave the land? Is a secret society trying to usurp the throne? Or is a devastating comet on a collision course with a major population center? Whatever the threat or danger is in your world, it is important to think about the details that make it so, and also why your player characters have a reason to be involved. If it is an ancient evil, what connects that threat to your characters? There could be a family relation, a prophetic vision, a divine quest, or a lucrative contract to deal with the foe. Whatever the reason, you're going to need to find a way to tie your party to the threat. Here are some examples. The Lich King is the great-great-grandfather of the party wizard. They are members of the same bloodline. The Paladin made an oath to lock the Lich King beyond the gates of Hell himself, and he will deliver the keys to that gate to the God of Light. Maybe it's not that intense. Maybe it's a more local problem, such as a tribe of nomads that often plague the people of the land. Consider each of the player character's relationship to this entity. Though nomads raid our trade caravans in this part of the world, but not all of them, only those caravans of the party leader's family line. The nomads are willing to have negotiations with the party cleric because they both believe in the same god and religious text. Were the party and the tribe ever on benign terms? Or was the relationship always adversarial? Perhaps the opposing force has a legitimate and valid reason for disapproving of the player characters. The nomads have lived in this valley for 1,000 years, but imperial expansion has almost eradicated their way of life, and small wars have depleted their numbers. It is also important to consider hooking the players into the locations of the campaign world. Location history provides opportunities for investing the player characters into the physical world around them. There may be deep cultural relationships, family ties, and societal traditions that relate to the locations. The Dwarven Mine is built upon the ancestral homelands of the Orcish Horde. Your father was a founding member of the Lost Colony site that you are now exploring. This is a field where the Moon Goblins were said to have first landed on the planet. You get the idea. Lastly, for this episode, I want us to consider the history of objects and treasure that the adventure contains. Are magic weapons merely an incremental gain of power owed to the players after months of adventuring in-game? Or was there a name and a narrative behind every legendary blade? The sword was forged during the War of the Crown and Dragons. It was used by the Knight of the Heavens when he faced Azagoth the Defiler in mortal combat. This armor belonged to the last dwarf king of the Glimmerdome before his line was extinguished. It was willed to your great-uncle by his father, who uncovered it during an excavation. Now that we've discussed connecting conflict, personalizing places, and making the loot legendary, let's try it for ourselves. Name 2 major character-based conflicts in your world. You can borrow if you need to. Mine will be the Lich King Valdemar, enemy to the crown, and keeper of secrets. My second is the Red Sisters, a secret cult I read in a book by Kobold Press. Connect these conflicts to a character. Use one of your own, or just make one up. The Paladin's life is bound by the Lich King's fate. They are interconnected. The Paladin dies, so does the Lich, a fact that he both loves and hates. The Rogue's mother was a member of the Red Sisters for many years. He only knows this because he's read a collection of journals that his aunt kept stored away in the home where she raised him. Next, invent 2 locations and tie a character to each of them. The Troubled Frog Tavern has kept a painting of the party bard hanging in it for 3 years, but apparently they've been using it recently as a dartboard. The Barrowfells are a high mountain grave where every dwarf is buried as part of their funeral rites. The dwarf in the party is going to pay tribute to his late nephew, who died all too young. Lastly, let's tie stories of 2 magic items to the adventure world. That pair of +2 daggers were blessed by the divine magic of a Kuotoan war hero that is said to be returning to retrieve them at the beginning of the apocalypse. This matters because the Kuotoa say they saw him last week. Azagoth's bane was a sword forged by the last of the line of the Sacred Sisters, an organization of female swordsmiths committed to defeating the archdemon. It is said that if the sword is dipped in the pool of divine tears, it will become complete. So there you have it. You can add history to every person, place, or thing in your campaign setting in order to connect characters to your campaign world. Next week we're going to be talking about societies and cultures. Until next time.